Hi everyone. My daughter will be turning 19 in just a few days. Makes me feel real old. But I'm going to upload a little keepsake video that I made for her. And it will have clips of where she was born and on up. She won't let you film her much now or when she, got teenager and stuff, because I guess that's how most girls are. But just real quick, I lost my first baby, a little girl. Her name was going to be Megan. And then when I got pregnant with my son, I tried to lose him. I was put on total bed rest, on a home monitoring system. A nurse would call me twice a day, monitor my contractions, tell me whether if I needed to come into the hospital or not, and was on a medication to try to stop me from losing him. So then when I got pregnant with my daughter, everything went good. I just stayed sick a lot. I kept terrible headaches. The kind where nothing would help, and when you're pregnant, I wouldn't take nothing, so I would just suffer through it. And someone had said to wrap like a scarf or something around your head right here, and that will help take off some of the pressure. So anyway, my midwife kept trying to throw me into labor by stripping my membranes, and she did it the 1 week, told me to go to the hospital that night and have them to page her, and she would come up there, break my water, and we would have her. Well, instead of paging her or something, they called her, it didn't go through, and so they sent us back home. And the next week, she did it again because she was going to be on call that night. And she told me to go home and that she would call me that night around 10 or 11 o'clock and say, "I'm here, come on up." So we did that. She broke my water. Then I went into labor. Didn't even get an epidural. I thought they had done waited too late. Actually, they did, and the pain was horrible, but it's worth it. But the whole time I was adamant that I wanted a girl. I would have loved a boy, loved him just the same, but I just wanted a girl. And I remember when we went to the ultrasound, my first ultrasound, I had a whole room full of people in there, and so we asked the question, "What can you tell what it is?" And she said, "I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's a girl." And everybody started cheering and stuff. But I still wasn't 100% sure. And so everybody just kept buying girl stuff and kept saying, "It's a girl." And I was like, she said she was going to go out on a limb. And now, every time I was pregnant, I would always have a dream. And I would dream what my child would be, but I never could see its face. I dreamed with Megan, I dreamed with Alex, but with Nikki, I kept saying I ain't had my dream yet. So, I finally had a dream, and I dreamed we was going out to eat at a restaurant, and we was toting the baby carrier, and I kept saying, it's hard for me to say, I kept saying in my dream, I just can't get used to saying, "It's a girl, it's a girl." So the dream kind of confirmed it, but I still wasn't sure. So when we went in to have her, they about waited too late to give me my epidural, and I was in so much pain. And if you want anybody there with you, you want my Aunt Debbie, because she's going to make sure they give you some medicine and you're not hurting and stuff. So they finally come in there when I was between a 7 and an 8 and gave me the epidural. And I remember it didn't work. And I kept telling them I still feel it. And they kept telling me, "Oh, you just feel pressure." Well, I know my body, and I know what pressure is, and I know what pain is. So I remember I just grabbed my Aunt Debbie and got her down in my face. I said, "I am hurting, please." She went out, got the anesthesiologist. He came in and fixed it. Didn't feel nothing else afterwards. So they almost waited too late. When the nurse came in there to check me, she looked at my aunt and my husband, and my two aunts were in there, my husband and my sister, and my mom and all. But Mom didn't want to stay in the delivery room with me because she said I'm her baby and it's hard for her to see me in pain. But she said sometimes we have to deliver the babies before the doctor gets here. So she paged the doctor to come up in there, and almost by the time the doctor got in there, Nikki popped out. She was bigger than my first baby. She was bigger than Alex. And I remember when they held her up to me, I said, y'all like, I mean, because everybody kept convincing me, Cricket, it's going to be a girl, quit worrying. And when they held her up, I said, y'all lied to me, this is a boy. And my Aunt Debbie just moves the umbilical cord and said, Cricket, look again. So, but something I could tell, something changed. They said immediately something had changed about me. Where I'm happy, go lucky, friendly. I immediately changed. I immediately, now I don't remember a lot of this, it's just people telling me. But just something about my demeanor changed. And I would have loved Nikki if she would have been a boy too, just the same. So, I remember they came in there, the nurse, the day we were supposed to leave, and said we're going to do some new PKU test or something that they're making them do now, but this one will not be accurate, and 2 to 3 days later after you bring her home, you're going to have to take her to the doctor to do it again. And I'm like, why torture her to do that now if I'm going to have to do that again? And I'll just tell you, I blessed the nurse out, and I wasn't nice about it. They stuck my baby's foot, and she was crying and trying to get a blood sample and stuff, and I just thought, I mean, my cousins was having to hold me back. I was about to beat that nurse black and blue for hurting my baby. So the picture that they snapped of me coming out of the hospital, I'm like this. I'm just so mad because why do that if you got to do it again? Well, we got home and everything, and my health just went downhill pretty quick. I started running high fevers. I was sick. I won't go into detail about that. And I had these headaches that were the worst migraine type headaches you could ever have. My husband would take me back to my doctor. They said, let's make sure that when they gave her the epidural, she don't have like a blood spot or something, and we may have to inject blood back in there to make sure she don't have no holes in her spine. Well, that wasn't the case, and they would just give me medicine, and they'd just keep saying, well, you have a headache. And one day he took me back, and my doctor said, you actually look green. They said my skin was actually looking green, but they still sent me home. And 2 weeks had passed, and people would come and visit me and the babies, and they would call Mama and say, something's not right with Cricket. She's mean. Her demeanor. They said they would come over. I would grab the baby up and just go running in my room and lock the door. It's like I just didn't want nobody to touch her. My aunts and all, they would take Alex with them. And they won't tell me really how I acted because they said that you wouldn't believe it and it's over with, and they knew I was sick, so why even worry about it? But I do remember this part, only bits and pieces. 2 weeks had passed. I was just still walking around in my nightgown. If this is a little graphic, I'm sorry, but I had ran out of some nursing pads. And I remember I called my mom, and she says, well, before I can get there, take an old wash rag and use that. And then my aunt called me and said, put 2 cabbage leaves in there too. Well, like a crazy person, I did that. So my husband came home, and I had that scarf just tied as I could around my head. It just nothing would relieve this headache. I was sick. And he came home, and he did say, he got a little angry, and he said he's getting sick and tired of coming home and having to cook and take care of everything, that he's taking me to doctors. The doctors all say that I'm fine. And about that time, I picked up my plate and I went in the other, right here, you know, my kitchen and my living room's connected and it's open. They said I walked up, I picked up my plate and I told them, said, if you don't like it, then you can just leave. And I walked to the bassinet and I was looking at Nicky. He said I did 3 spins and he caught me before I hit the floor. He said I was jerking all over, blood was coming out of my mouth, and he was on the phone with 911. And they said that plate, it just went throwing like a frisbee in the house. And so 911 thought maybe I was choking on food, and he's like, no, she's not doing that. Something's wrong. And he said I wouldn't talk or nothing. And so when he hung up from 911, he called my mom. He said, get over here quick, something's wrong with Cricket, 911's on their way. Then he hung up from my mom and he called my Aunt Debbie. And he said, something's wrong. By that time, he said, I looked at him and I asked, are you my daddy? So he called Aunt Debbie. He said, she don't know who nobody is. She's asking me, am I her daddy? 911's on the way. He said as soon as he threw the phone in the yard, Aunt Debbie, my Uncle Mike, and all my little cousins had done pulled up in the yard. Ambulance had done got here. They said I was asking anybody, where's my daddy? And Mama, where's Mama? Mama. I would just say Mama, Daddy. And I'd look at my husband, are you my daddy? And they said that I went into another full-blown grandma seizure. And that by this time they had done gotten me into the ambulance. But they said I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who nobody was. And they said I was picking them men up and just throwing them across the ambulance. That I'd done clawed one and was just throwing them. And that they had to call in a backup so they could just, 2 men straddle me in the ambulance just to get the IV in me. And they said my aunt kept running, bless her heart, to the back of the ambulance, and my mom, like, Mom's here, Mom's here. And I just kept going, Daddy, Mama, Daddy, Mama. And they wouldn't let Richard ride in the ambulance, but they put my mama in the ambulance. And Mama said they took me in the hospital, rolled me in there with 2 men sitting on top of me. I'm like, oh, Lord, what them people must have thought. So, they said when they kind of got me stable, they let my husband walk in. And I said when my husband walked in, I asked him again, are you my daddy? And he said, I'm your husband, and Alex and Nikki are fine. I said, my husband, I don't know you. And who is Nikki? And he goes, Nikki is our baby, and Alex is fine. Now I remembered Alex. And I was like, who? You're my husband and we had a baby? Who are you? And they said that my blood pressure and all shot up. They had to kick him out of the room because here's this man that I didn't know telling me that he was my husband and we had just had a baby. And they did let my mama come in. But when my husband went out and told everybody that I didn't know who nobody was, everybody came walking in holding up a picture of Nikki, you know, telling me this is my baby. When I came to a couple of days later, where I can kind of start remembering, but I don't, I was in ICU. The doctor came in and said I almost died. They almost lost me. And so I was in and out of the hospital for like the next 2 weeks. I got home. And they told my mom and Richard that I couldn't be left alone because until they get medicine regulated and find out what's going on, that if I did that again, I would die if I didn't get medical help. So I remember I woke up in the middle of the night and I wasn't feeling good at all. I was feeling horrible. And I went to the bathroom and I remember I was just leaned down like this. And I just reached back, flipped on the light, and when I looked up, I started screaming. These red whelps came up on my face, and my skin was just like peeling off. And the baby's thermometer, the ear thermometer, was laying right there. When I took my temperature, it was 104. And my husband by this time done came in here. He called the doctor. They're like, get her to the hospital fast, ASAP. Don't waste no time. So a week had passed and everybody thought I was okay, so everybody went on vacation. My mom went to Jamaica, my aunts went to Florida, and they almost took Alex with them. Everybody was gone. The only person that was at home was my mama, Kathy. Now this was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And so the nurse, my doctor had called the ER saying that I'm on my way and stuff. So as I go walking in, they stopped my husband and wouldn't let the babies in because they said a newborn's not allowed in the ER. And I remember the receptionist just wasn't even looking at me. She goes, yes, why are you here? I said, they're waiting on me. And she goes, well, fill out this form. And I said, but they're waiting on me. And when she looked up and saw me, she goes, I know who you are. She started screaming for them to get in there and get me. They was pumping up, putting IVs in me, just rolling me down the hall. I'd had a severe reaction to the seizure medicine that they put me on that almost killed me too. So all of that got better eventually. I'm not on seizure medicine. The doctor's office said that it was eclampsia, that you rarely hear of a case of eclampsia 2 weeks after a baby's born, but it does happen. And the neurologist said it wasn't eclampsia, but he didn't know what it was. So we just chalk it down to I had eclampsia, that nobody caught the preeclampsia. But I'm still here, my baby girl's still here. I don't have a lot of memories. The only memory that I really have is when she was 4 months old and I went to feed her. Now my last memory of feeding a baby, you feed them, you know, a little bit and then you burp them. But by this time she was done on the bottle. And my aunt said, here's her bottle. And she said I fed her like a half of an ounce, and when I went to burp her, my aunt just said she watched me for a while, and then she came up, she said, hon, she eats a full bottle now. And they said I just started crying because I'd lost all those memories. But they did take a lot of video for me. So a lot of times you're going to see me in the bedroom, I'm watching videos. So happy birthday, my baby girl. Mama loves you.
Got it? For my bullet board?
You done. Mostly thinking that vinegar doesn't work. That vinegar doesn't work.
Hi, Toby. I don't know how I got you. Look at it.
Feel like that's gonna be our play for you. We'll be just dressing her up. Yeah, like a dog. Yeah.
What's your sister's name? Huh?
That's my sister, Precious.
She's Precious. What's her name?
That's Precious.
Hello. Can you wave? What's your name?
Give me some sugar. Look. Look. Did she burp? You sure she grunts a lot? There it went. See, I told you. Good God. John cold? Looks like she's looking right at it. Hi, Mama. Is that what the heck is these people doing? No, miss. No. Help it. I don't know how to play it, babe.
We dedicate this child to our Lord Jesus Christ. You hold this.
Make a face. That's it, Rachel. Make a face.
Wink, Nikki.
You.
Wink.
Do this. Do this, Nikki. Look.
Hey, Dada. Say hey, Dada.
We get tape.
Okay.
She ain't happy.
Let me get Sister crawling.
Mom, take him.
Wait, Sister won't leave me alone. Leave me alone, Sister.
Mama.
Okay, where's your egg?
Mom, take me. Push myself. Bubbles, hide me. Don't push my own self.
Smile.
I'm trying to smile. That being raised moved up and flat.
This is the babysitter. The babies are sleeping and she is a sitting.
And Chrissy, bye-bye.
Did you have future tradition?
Thanks. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Do you want to sing it? Sing it. Sing it. No, sing it. You get such a fit. Sing it. Happy birthday. No! Sing it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mickey. Happy birthday to you.
That was sweet.
He's not for me.
How many buys
Oh. What's up?
Yeah.
Yay!
Have fun.
Oh, well. Cricket, sit on our mouth and tell what it is.
That's good.
Hey.